Much appreciated. And now I'd like to introduce you, I'm Daniela Jordan Gonzalez with the HMIS team, and I would love to introduce you to, let me get this right. From Mental Health America West, Central Indiana, Jesse Malone and Izzy Kelly from Region 7, and Renee Harleman and Tim Pearson from Region 9, Centerstone. They are experts in this topic of summer counts, and I'll be facilitating the questions. So to start off, I want to provide a brief context of what the point in time count is. It's a snapshot focused on one day of where people slept on that night. It is a count of category 1 and 4 of homeless people in sheltered and unsheltered locations. And it is a report that is submitted to HUD. Our deadline is this Thursday, 4:30. So that is a brief context about the point in time count. Now, the PIP count has some historical difficulties. Some of those are, the questions are limited to the HMIS data intake. So you only focus on those questions that are in the HMIS intake. It's a snapshot, so just focuses on one point in time. It only includes category 1 and 4 homelessness, and probably you working in the field, you know that homelessness looks very different for different people. It also misses sometimes youth, counting youth, because of some RIDE projects and how they count youth and whatnot. It is heavily impacted by the weather. So if it's very cold like this year, maybe we are missing to count a lot of people who are unsheltered, maybe in abandoned building. And like I mentioned, is a one-day count. Can you think of any others to our panelists? Are there any other historical difficulties that I'm missing?
Having heard, I mean, once again, even having, since it is a one-day count, having enough people that can assess and
So assessing capacity for assessing all the people that need to be assessed. And I guess another thing going with that is, up until this year, we, meaning IHCDA, had the directive to focus the count on that 24-hour period. So after 6 p.m. on, in this case, it would be January 27th, and then until like noon of January 28th, asking people where they slept on the night of January 28th. So those are some historical difficulties that we've had with the PIT count. So that's why we thought it was a great idea to see what a summer count looks like. So I'm going to start with some questions, and we can start with Region 7 and go to Region 9 and then go back and forth. So what do you do for your summer count? And if you could focus on how long you've been doing it, who you count, where you're counting, and how long does your count last?
So my name is Jess. I'm the co-chair of the Region 7 RPC and also the director of homeless services with Mental Health America of West Central Indiana. And our region has been doing a summer point in time since back in 2019. It was a big push by the county. Our county commissioner at the time was one of the chairs of the homeless coalition for us. And there was a lot of just like questions from the community in terms of like what the real scope is of people experiencing homelessness. Especially knowing some of these, difficulties with methodology of point in time. I also think that there is maybe a misconception about what PIT actually is to people who are not in the work. And so many, government officials, whatever, might see it as like a full census of people experiencing homelessness in your community, which is really not what it is showing. It's really showing that service gap of like, these are the individuals who don't have any other resources. But there may be people that are literally homeless that are not included in PIT because they, are staying with friends on that one night or in a hotel for that one night. And so we decided to try to expand it out in our region. There are a lot of people that are more at risk for homelessness. Maybe they're couch surfing or staying in hotels. in sober living programs, maybe in jails or in other like institutional type settings. And so they have like the goal in mind of being able to include those individuals as well. And so previously they would do like a sheltered count and then an unsheltered count. We're looking to make some changes this year for us, and I'll probably get to that in a bit. But yeah, I think that's generally what we're looking at.
Region 9, we do like the same thing where our 7.10 card count starts in April. We actually coordinate with a lot of agencies throughout our region. And then once we get together, we start an outreach resource event at one of our hubs. And that takes place in August. Our summer .10 count mainly it's not a second count. It's actually a follow-up count. We follow up with those people that we met in the winter. And we take part in seeing what got them to where they're at. Let's see what that is.
I just add, I mean, the weather is such an obvious facet of it, and with the homeless population, as we all know, there's those distinctive temperatures. So if it's really, really cold, it's gonna be hard to connect, but if it's just a little cold, then they're out and about. Same thing, if it's really hot. So, that was the basis originally, is can we try to connect with folks at a time when the weather might have a better chance of being a little more cooperative and giving us that extra opportunity to do it. So, but yeah, so that's a big aspect of what we do as well, but also just to connect for a second time here in the year, at least.
Thank you so much. And just a follow-up question for Region 7, when did you start doing the summer count? Oh, sorry, Region 9, I apologize. Fifth year, okay, thank you so much. So now that we know a little bit about when they started and what it looks like, what kind of affiliations they include, I'm curious to see what type of preparation or committee is involved in helping you plan the point in time.
This is the first year that Izzy and I have been a part of the planning process for the summer point in time. And so one of the first things that we started to discuss is like, how do we want to use this information? Like, what purpose are we collecting this for? Are we gonna use it for strategic planning? Are we using it to try to compare to winter numbers? So ultimately we decided like the best path forward was to try to mirror the methodology as closely as possible so that you can compare the two counts to each other. And in addition to that, we add like a supplemental survey to that. And so as a community, we have to come together to decide like what information it is that we're hoping to learn from this process. And for us, I think that, we've heard a lot anecdotally from the police, from the city, that there may be people coming into the community that are coming here from outside of the community. That are experiencing homelessness, and so we're trying to identify if that's actually the case, or if that's more anecdotal. Also, like if they are, where they may be coming from, and how can we, work on fixing some of these pipelines that are happening. But yeah, I think that you can use the supplemental really to find any information that you're trying to for the purposes of strategic planning. Ultimately, that was, I think, our main.
So we started planning, we recently just started to get together, we utilize the executive team from our region, and then we are also adding in a couple of partners that work with us on the summer pit count. So really, it's going to be the main ones of us that are focused in it, and then as we get closer, we'll bring in volunteers, but it's really us starting to come together and decide really what we want this to look like and being able to start planning it, and we'll have bi-weekly meetings, and then when it gets closer, those will increase. For Region 9, we have our RPC members and we have other agencies in the community that has a passion for fighting homelessness and try to match the gaps.
We don't all have to talk on every question, but I want to say it wasn't that many years ago that this was the planning committee right here. She was doing everything. So a lot of good recruitment in the community to get other people involved is obviously key.
Thank you so much. So, does the planning change? Because I hear that, like Jesse said, you have a goal in mind and that kind of like is what leads the process. How is that, and how do you adapt when you want to find something different the next year? We can touch on that.
I think that, like I said, this is Izzy and my first year kind of taking over planning, but you know, some of the things that we've seen in the past were just like maybe some concerns around the methodology with how questions were being asked, whether observational surveys were interfering with you know, being able to provide correct and accurate data that doesn't include like duplicated clients. And so just like with the data grid that I have, like my big focus was on making sure that we had very clean data to be able to provide to the community. And so that for us is like creating multiple different types of surveys and figuring out a good system for collecting that information and then being able to pull it out and, you know, manipulate and kind of figure out, you know, what that looks like for us. So.
A big thing, some of the big changes this year too, and that was once again, like just had talked about was like us meeting with the mayor, like they were recently with SB 285. I'm sure same in your communities. It has been a big topic for the city and county. So once again, us kind of discussing with city officials, like what is some of the information you're really wanting to look for? And ours, it was definitely people coming in from out of towns and how long have they experienced homelessness, what led to that. So being able for us to change those questions around each time to kind of gear to fit what our community is looking to answer. As well as even changing how we ask those. What if?
So.
Yeah, the job form, so being able to change it, utilizing a job form on our phones instead of having to carry around the paper and being able to collect the data from that, I think is really important.
And I like the idea of the job form too, because it's gonna be HIPAA compliant, you can still be collecting those like birth dates or like personal information. Again, I think that helps making sure we're not deduplicating and also saves us a lot of time and energy when it comes to like entering those surveys into a system. So each assessor is able to do that individually. Now, for the HIPAA, like compliant version, I think it's maybe like $60 a year.
And like she said, there's also a couple of different surveys we have, whether it is somebody who is literally homeless or whether it is somebody who is at risk or unstably housed. So that making sure that we're keeping that data separate as well. So it'll give us a broader, it'll give us a better idea. And then once again, the other change was we are still going to utilize a 25 or a 24-hour point, like so the overnight for the one night, but we'll just take the surveys all week long. But that way it's also geared closer to our winter count so we can compare those.
And the question was kind of about the difference between the winter and the summer.
What is, planning team?
Well, when we created the idea to do the summer, at that point is when we begin to think about it a little bit differently and do it more as a resource type fair. And then we've duplicated that back into the winter now. So both of them are very, very similar. Some different logistics just because of the weather and the time of the year. But the idea of making it more of a resource type fair to where, you know, it's kind of set up like this, where there's lots of different community partners there. And really, it's just kind of the idea of making, you know, it's like we could think about it like it wasn't to do the focus to get the count, to get the data, and then do some resources along the way. It's really the opposite. The focus is on the resource and the connection with folks and offering a lot of on-site services opportunities where they can start the process to get their IDs when they're there, or start the process to get a birth certificate order while they're there. They can sign up for HUD's Lift while they're there. That was a big piece of what we originally wanted to do with the summer, but then we've just carried that over and bring it up to both events and just make it a really nice opportunity to stay connected to your phone site.
Yeah, we also do the outreach, but it's less than 24 hours. So we may go a couple hours before the event and then a few hours after.
Awesome. So just to recap, resources, like providing that resource and that outreach, it seems to be the main component for both regions. And you both have mentioned that it is similar, the pit in the summer and the pit in the winter. I think it's interesting that you said that you want to compare that information, so that's why you've chosen to kind of like have a similar approach. So I think that's interesting. if a region is considering having a PIT summer count, that is an idea, right? To have it similar to the winter count. I just want to summarize a few more things. For the planning part, it seems like you, both regions, work with partners. You ask the city about like what things they want to know. So that's another thing to keep in mind, to maybe not only work with the service providers in your area, but also look at government, other nonprofits, maybe like you were saying, people who are in jail or who might be in rehab centers. And those are all important populations to include as part of the summer count. My next question is, we've kind of touched on what is different and what is similar to the January count. So I'm gonna go to the next question, is what barriers do you see in doing a summer count? What are some of those barriers? We talked about, the pit count in the winter barriers, the historical difficulties. What are some for the summer?
I think it's maybe not as supported, obviously, as the pit count, where you have like trainings and stuff for volunteers coming out and, you have the access to HMIS to be able to input that data, and then that data is fed back to you, by the state who's compiling all that information. And instead, we're doing all of that work and having to find our own databases to store that information and then pull it out and figure out what we're gonna do with it. I would say that to me is one of the main differences and challenges with it.
Okay, so we really don't have many barriers for the summer. Since you get access to HMIS, it's not recorded, obviously, it's not winter count. Tim Pearson here from Bridges for Life, they have their own data. You can put stuff in there, all the demographics, so who's got a login information, so they can follow through with that. Summer. Yeah, just like whether it can be difficult to follow up with the folks we have out there. That's about it. Not counting much spots.
I think that's been kind of nice in our community the last couple of years with the point in time count in the winter specifically, is that we had access to the holding shelters to open up for that day. And so you could kind of like have everyone pulled in and congregated in one space to be counted. And we won't have that, obviously for the summer count. So we tried to adjust for it by instead creating like a hub, which is going to be held at RT shelter. And they already have an existing like monthly mobile clinic that comes to their location. And so we're just trying to beef it up with additional like services, resources, food, like whatever, to try to draw people in and out instead.
I have a question.
Yes,
So this, really hope that you guys have done this, because for the last 7 years, I'm just like, why are we counting the summer, right? So with that, like the numbers, we all do the pit count in January, so come August, what is the difference, right, within your numbers? Like, because I bet those numbers are a lot higher than they were in January. Then some of those individuals that we found in January are probably more chronic than they're pretty chronic because they're outside that day. What do those numbers look like for you? And are they typically are you seeing more individuals out? Well, they're all outside. I don't know. I guess I'm not wording it right.
so many more. What is the difference in numbers between
but
the
like,
winter?
yes, like I can imagine it being extremely high, but are those individuals, have they been counted in January? That's what I'm asking.
I see.
So I think for us, there have been some concerns around the methodology in previous years with the summer count, because they were allowing for more like observational surveys to be collected, and they were kind of lumping in at risk for homelessness and with sheltered situations. And so I don't think that the two are necessarily super comparable, at least historically. It's part of the reason why we're shifting our assessment tools. But like generally you would see maybe 600 total, maybe a couple hundred of those, maybe between 100 and 150 unsheltered. So not huge differences, I guess, in numbers in terms of unsheltered individuals, but you're capturing a lot more people with, I guess, expanded criteria otherwise.
And I also want to clarify, because I did think about this with with the barriers, but it is a barrier. We started this in 2019, once again, with one of our county commissioners really pushing it. So we are Region 7, but this is done just in Terre Haute. So that's also important too, because the barrier is we're not getting the counts from the counties that are also a part of Region 7 as well.
So I don't think for us, the difference from the winter count and the summer, as far as the quantity of people, it doesn't change too much. It stays pretty consistent because it is, there are some of the same people that we met, just because of the short distance between a number of months. But, it's such a transitional population, so there's always new folks that are coming into the, so yeah, I don't think a big difference in the number of people. But let's say it's 100 here and 100 here, it's a different 100 people, of course. Just because more people did come out. But the need to do more outreach in extreme temperatures is the key. We have kind of a simple, we're mid-size, same as that, where it's Region 9, but we're talking about Wayne County, which is Richmond, which would be the largest of the homeless population among the region. So we do the event at a church that's very easy, that people are walking through all the time anyways, right close to the downtown area. So we're mid-sized cities, so it's easy for people to get to pretty well anywhere that they might be. They can walk to this church pretty easily. 90% of them, anyways. So most of them can get in there. Same.
Besides, we can pick our own day that we want to do the account on, which is beneficial, but you have hypothermia and you got hyperthermia. So we kind of make sure it's not the hottest day of the year when we do our summer winter.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the question. If any of you at any point have questions, please feel free to raise your hand. I should have said that before. So we talked a little bit about, you guys are doing great about the strengths and about the barriers. Let's touch a little bit more on those strengths. We kind of like summarized on what those barriers are. What are some of the strengths in doing a summer account versus a winter account?
I think for us, it's like highly desired information from the community. I think it's something that people want to put a bit of weight behind to make sure that it's done like effectively. And it's also just a really great push, like a resource day for us to get out there and get engaged with the community. So I think that we've done pretty well in terms of like identifying volunteers to get it set up and making sure that we're kind of covering the whole city there. Other strengths. I think that we have a pretty good team, like at this point, making a lot of the planning decisions and stuff, and we're a very like collaborative group. Our whole RPC, I would say, is very highly collaborative, and the team specifically that's working on the point in time count for summer is, yeah, I think it's multiple different agencies, so we're kind of connecting with different, groups, different populations, but we all work together.
And I would also say, once again, anytime we're doing a point in time count, whether it's winter or summer, we are raising awareness at that point in time. So I also think that's another huge strength, just to be able to raise awareness. And then once again, like we've talked about a few different times, another strength is being able to change, we use the regular questions, but being able to add other questions on there so that we can gain information that we're really seeking for our community.
Well, I don't know that I would distinguish too much of the strengths, summer versus winter. They both offer such a unique opportunity, depending on the weather for the connectability. But, for us, it's a couple things that are really key, which is one is just an additional connection. So most of the groups that we would have in that room that day, most of them are interacting with this population fairly regularly anyways. So it's a lot of familiar faces that are coming in. And it's not just those that are homeless or chronically homeless that maybe qualify to be counted in the survey, but it's just a large number of already at-risk people. So they're not homeless today, but in our county, we're one of the top for evictions. So it's like, they're not homeless today, but there'll be another 25 people homeless next week, that kind of thing. So being able to just connect and get upstream a little bit with some of the folks before they are actually out on the streets is really nice. And then No, I'm newer to the world than what Renee is too, so I'm sometimes not so focused on the larger picture and the data and what happens with all of it, what good can come of the messaging and all of that, but really looking at just the micro level of making a really deep connection. So we try to just make it first class with how we do it. That's a big strength of the requirements. So they're treated very, very well. We've got a nice backpack of supplies. We've got readers at the door. We've got what we call navigators. So they're literally, just taken, get a hold of them right when they come in, introduce them to Navigator. And Navigator makes sure that they find lunch and kind of tours them around the room and connects them where they want. So it's a lot of dignity-based type care that they're given, which just helps to bond that relationship so that they'll be more willing to listen. The navigators can sit down at the table like these, we can eat lunch with them and talk to them, and of course, do the survey. And then, just kind of make sure that they get all the things. So any opportunity, if we could, if we had the capacity to do it every month, it'd be great because it's just additional connection and building that relationship. So that's really the strength of the whole experience. Yeah.
Yeah, we get feedback that everybody has a really good time.
So much. This year, some members of the community services team had the opportunity to go to Evansville for a resource fair, and they had a great time. So I would like to join your region. Awesome. Thank you so much. The next question talks about like, what do you do with the data that you collect? You've kind of touched on that a little bit. It depends on why you want to collect the information. It seems like Region 9, you have a system where you gather that information. Is there anything else you would like to add? Like if people, different regions go and do their summer count, what would be your advice for collecting that data? And what do you do with it later? And if you haven't got to do what you would like to do, what would you like to do with that data?
I think the first question you have to ask as a group is just, what it is that you're wanting to know? What is the purpose for what you're doing? Because just having a count for the sake of counting is, I don't think like the most beneficial thing, but just some of what we had been seeing in the past, like it was genuinely just, it was a count, it was a time to make connections and have a good like outreach effort. I guess that was what I would say was the previous purpose. But then it was just like a number that you're posting in the paper after the facts. We're not like doing a lot to like read those individuals or to try to use that information. So I think what our hope is, we are working pretty closely with the Human Relations Commission and with Public Works and with the mayor's office. And they're going to be starting community-wide strategic planning for creating like a 5 to 10 year plan for ending homelessness. And so this is, a big part of like why we're collecting information that we're collecting.
And then just like they talked about over here, Region 9, I think it's really important. We have always gathered like people that are at risk of losing their homelessness or unstably housed or, 3 families in one house. Like we've always tried to look at those situations. The sad part about it is just we've collected all that data together, so we weren't able to. This year, we're actually going to work on separating that data so we can actually get a really good look at how many are at risk and how many are literally homeless. So I think once again, being able to collect that data and be able to separate it is going to give us a lot of information we're going to use for moving forward, because like you talked about, it's important to look at that upstream when we're ending homelessness. We can't just look at the ones that are out here. We have to look at the ways we can work on preventative things as well. So I think this is really going to help us advance to be able to come up with this data. Data can help us to come up with a lot of new strategies.
That's the mic very long. Yeah, I think several years back doing one of the first surveys that I did with someone and not really sure exactly what we would do afterwards. And got the survey and it was kind of like, hey, thanks for the information and I can add you to my list of all the people that are homeless that need support, and we can do whatever with that and maybe we'll get some money I thought, well, that's not what I want to do and not what I want to see happen, is that I sort of and none of us, I'm sure, do this, but I sort of used used your sad state of affairs to help me get some data for a survey to maybe do something good with it. And then it's like, hey, wish you well. And, it's 2 degrees outside. Thanks for taking my survey. Here's a bag of chips and pop. So I never wanted it to be that. We don't want it to be that. We want it to, the follow-up is key. So the data, it's good to report to all the powers that be that we read the data for sure. But the real point of that information we gather is so that we can then do the follow-up. So through our agency, we kind of take the lead with our team in doing all the follow-up. So all individuals that attend to the event, we have their information, but we create a kind of a unique questionnaire that they fill out, whether they're in addition to the survey, that just asks them some more, detailed questions about their situation. And then that form, we get contact information, or if they don't have a phone, where can we find you? And then that form then ends up with the team that does the follow-up. So we make an effort to reach out to everybody that attended the event, try to get a sit-down meeting with them where we can sit down and just talk through the situation, so that it's not just, we got your information and we handed you a couple of goodies in a bag and then all can win. We want to make sure that the interaction is meaningful and that it's helpful and that they know that we do care about them. And if they want a path forward, we want to help them get on that path forward. So that's an important piece for the data. And then we have that year over year. So I have all the ones that have attended every event in our system. So when they reattend, we put them back in and we'll say, oh, we saw them back in August and here's what they were facing then. Here's what they're facing now. And piece it together and really help them forward. And we've had a ton of success in getting so what's happened. So it's been good.
Next time we should have 5 mics. Make a note of that. That is wonderful. Yes, question.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, please.
With the summer counts, do you guys do surveys with everybody in shelters or, it's similar to like the unhoused or unsheltered count with the pit count? Because we did a count 10 years ago in Region 1, only part of the region. And that's one barrier that we really had, was making sure that we were duplifying the data with remaining HIPAA compliant, because it was really hard to tell. So many of our service providers are serving multiple people, either through shelter or other homeless services, that without having client track to support the count, it was really almost impossible for us to really say with confidence that it was an unduplicated number.
And before I pass it to the regions, did you use a system or to kind of like say, okay, these many people came from this place, and did you have any questions to kind of help you deduplicate that?
We did, but I wasn't confident in some of our service providers' responses to that. So we tried the best we could. We only did it one time because of that lack of confidence.
Yeah.
And it was a specific reason why we were counting, because we were having a private funder coming online that was interested in one county within our region. So we had to try and get a number for them specific to that county. But some of the providers, again, we created a system, but I'm not sure that they fully grasped it or that I trusted the numbers 100%. And then without being able to verify with the system like client track, it's, I don't know how useful it was, or what systems you guys are using that maybe if we were to do it again, we could implement that.
Brenda Devitt suggested job form as a tool to be used for this. So I think that's what we're doing. This isn't one that we've used historically, so I have to answer that question in a couple of months to let you know, but yeah, it's a HIPAA compliant form, and so we're trying to collect all the same information that we would for the traditional pay count, including things like last four socials and birth dates. So my hope would be then that with that information, as long as it's being collected and asked, that we would be able to tell,
So
whether someone's being duplicated or
but
not.
that would be something that all shelter providers would have to do a survey with each individual.
Correct. So what I'm looking to do is one, survey that's specific for people that are unsheltered. And then each of the shelters would send like the numbers that are enrolled in their programs and the hotels and this and that. So it's more like numbers across the board there, but then more like specific detailed information for unsheltered people specifically.
Our hub is relatively close to our shelter. So we put out flyers and it's kind of up to those people in the shelters to come to our hub. As of right now, that's why it's kind of a little different in the winter time. I guess it's good to actually have a job form finding, but we'll not talk about that later.
For us in Wayne County, your question reveals our big issue, so it doesn't take us long to count the shelters. We have one men's shelter that houses about 6 guys, women's shelter that is full with about 10 ladies, and that's it. So with hundreds of homeless in the population in our county. Yeah, so it does not take us long, about 10 minutes, we'll get those done. So, yeah, that's a big need for us.
And I think there's another question.
Yes, please.
What's the date?
Well, I know theirs is in August, ours is in July, but once again, we just choose. Both of them,
Yeah.
just kind of choose the day that we think is going to be, is going to be good with that, like ours, once again, ours will be, for the main day, pathways, so we talked to them, like, hey, it's a good day, what's a good day for all of us? Like, to make sure that way we're all like collaborating together, and make sure that's the most beneficial day for that. But we will continue to count people all week long, but it will be based on that 24-hour period.
Charging for like resource fairs and
Exactly.
with time and stuff, there's very good information, maybe you can walk them all side and get some money and something.
Absolutely.
We don't want them in the area.
Thank you, Jen. And thank you for the answers. And I was gonna,
Yes, please, just to follow up to the data, I heard you guys in seven say earlier about, change the questions, fit it to like fit your need, and you mentioned something about if there was kind of an influx of information. I feel like that's a common theme, I know we're experiencing it in ours too, and was wondering if you did ask that question, how you asked it, and what you did with that information. Because
This is the first time for that question, so I put together a supplemental survey. It's not necessarily finalized, but I don't know, if you want my contact, I'd be happy to share it out to you if you would like. I don't remember the exact wording. I'm sure I can pull it up on my phone and show you in a bit, but yeah, more or less, we're trying to find out in which communities you live when you first became homeless. When did you come to this community? Like, how long have you been here? If you became homeless here, what led to your homelessness? What service providers were you connected with at the time, if any? Yeah, so if you became homeless in a different community, how did you come to Terre Haute? And was it maybe a service provider that, provided you transportation?
two great questions. And I was gonna clarify that, so both regions, you choose a specific date to ask people where they slept on that date, but you use the resource fair, that 24-hour period, correct? And the 1 week long period to ask about that, is that correct? Okay, so it is still based on that one day. Awesome, thank you. So, we've talked about, I think we've touched on the plans that you have for this year, some future plans of what you want to do. Something I wanted to emphasize is the power of outreach, that it is to me that's the main strength of the PIT summer count, is another opportunity to reach out to people and to make those connections. And also an opportunity, to let them know about the winter point in time count, and maybe like through their resource fair, find other partners that might want to either provide some care packages, or they haven't thought about providing a service that maybe it's needed in the community. So I think that is very valuable from the summer camp.
I just want to add to, it's really important, like we talked about at our last I mean, it's also really important to think outside the box, not only with other people that work with people experiencing homelessness, but also like you reaching out to Anthem because Anthem makes the bags for, like the like hygiene kits and stuff, but also working with like partners in your community that put the persons together to bring them in. Working with the, dental officer, you may go usually always donate toothbrushes and toothpaste, the small ones we carry around. So once again, really thinking about things that the individuals coming in might be needing and how can you get those needs to your
The cell phone booths?
Yeah.
True.
As well as the mobile funds.
That's a great idea. And something that I want to mention as well that Tim said is that it's not just a matter of gathering numbers, right? Because sometimes I think we've tried our hardest at IHCDA to let people know that the pit count is not just a count, it's an outreach opportunity, is an opportunity for us at IHCDA to go out and see the work that you do, to interact with people who are experiencing homelessness if we haven't done that before. So it really opens your eyes to many things and to ideas that you can do to help them. So I do like that, and I wanted to bring that up because that follow-up seems to be the most important and that prevention part of things. So I think as you consider your regions, these new ideas for a PIT summer count, thinking about not just counting the people, but actually like maybe do you want to follow up with these clients? And if so, what does that look like? Or, kind of like understanding something that Region 7 mentioned, the origin, right? Like what brought you here? What led to your experience of homelessness? And that is a great plus that the pit count doesn't give you in the winter. Something that I want to recap as well is that a great thing about the pit count in the winter is that you have that HMIS support and those additional trainings and all of that. But at the same time, a downfall of that is that, or I would say a strength of the pit summer count is that it's a smaller group and you get to have more communication within that group. And sometimes that communication or those trainings get lost when we do the pit winter count. So I think we'll have to find a balance between that to kind of like support, because like you both mentioned, it is something that you want to count your region, but it is located in one city. And maybe that's something that could be revisited in future summer counts, maybe with more support, with more volunteers. So that's something to think about as well. And maybe it's a good thing that you've started doing it in one city, so you can, if that is successful, to replicate it somewhere else, right? That's great. Let's see. Thank you. So with our last question, and then I'm gonna leave some time for you all to ask any other questions, is what advice would you give to regions interested in starting their own summer count?